So we'll talk about the how we'll calculate the number of gametes. So calculation of number of gametes. Number of gametes is calculated by means of 2n rule. 2n rule. So we have number of gametes is equal to 2 raised power n, where n is equal to number of heterozygous alleles. Number of heterozygous alleles in a genotype. Number of heterozygous alleles in a genotype. This 2n rule, it is applicable to heterozygous alleles and 2n rule unapplicable on homozygotes. So we can calculate, for example, we have numericals. Calculate the number of gametes in following genotypes. We have capital R, small r, capital R, small r, capital Y, small y. Second is B, and we have X, small x. Same is the case, we have A, B. How we can calculate? This is first one. We have capital R, small r, capital Y, small y. So number of gametes is equal to 2n rule, where n is number of heterozygous alleles in a genotype. Number of heterozygous alleles in a genotype. Number of heterozygous alleles in genotype. So we have two. How many heterozygous alleles are here? We have 1, 2. So we have capital R, this is heterozygous allele, and capital Y, small y, heterozygous allele. So we have n is equal to 2. So we can calculate it, 2 raised power 2. So 4 types of gametes. Then we have second one, capital B, capital X, small x. For number of gametes is 2 raised power n, where n is number of heterozygous alleles. What is n? N is number of heterozygous alleles. So here this is homozygous allele, this is heterozygous allele. So n is equal to 1, because only one homozygous allele. This is homozygous allele, this is heterozygous, only one heterozygous allele. So BB, it is homozygous allele, and capital X, small x, heterozygous allele. So only one, n is 1, only one heterozygous allele. So number of gametes is called 2 raised power 1. So only 2 types of gametes are formed. So number of gametes 2. Same is the case we have here. This one, capital A, small a, capital B, small b. So how many heterozygous alleles are here? We have number of gametes, number of gametes 2 raised power n. How many heterozygous alleles are here? N is equal to 1, 2 heterozygous alleles. So 2 heterozygous. So 2 to are 4. 4 different types of gametes are formed here. 4 different types of gametes are formed here. Same is the case, we'll calculate number of gametes in following genotype. We have, for example, we have A, B, and C. Same is the case, we have, this is A, B, X, small x, Y, small y, and Z, small z. So this represents a sort of trihybrid condition, So we have first one, A. So how many heterozygous alleles are? Number of gametes. Rule is 2 raised power n. Number of gametes 2 raised power n, where n is equal to number of heterozygous alleles. 1 heterozygous allele, second, third, 3 heterozygous alleles. So number of gametes 2 raised power 3. So we have 2 to the 4 to the 8. 8 different types of gametes. This is the answer. Same is the case, we have B. We have capital X, small x, capital Y, small y, capital Z, small z. So number of gametes which are formed here is number of gametes. We have rule 2 raised power n. What is n? Number of heterozygous alleles. So this is 1 heterozygous allele, second third, so 3. So you can write down here 3, 2 to the 4 to the 8. 8 different types of gametes. So these are 8 different types of gametes are formed. Calculate the number of gametes in the following genotype. We have A. We have this condition. This condition. This genotype and this genotype. We have D. For example, we have this genotype. First one. So how many, where number of gametes is equal to 2 raised power n. So number of gametes is equal to 2 raised power n. So n is how many, what is n? N is equal to, n is the number of heterozygous alleles in a genotype. So number of gametes 2 raised power n. N is the number of heterozygous alleles in a genotype. How many heterozygous alleles are? This is homozygous allele, this heterozygous allele, and homozygous, so only one. So we can write down 2 raised power 1. So 2 different types of gametes are formed. Gametes are formed. So this is the answer. 2 different types of gametes are formed. So in the case we have B, A, capital B, capital B, capital C, small c. So 2 raised power n rule. What is n? N is the number of heterozygous alleles. So n is equal to, this is heterozygous allele, homozygous, heterozygous. So 1, 2 heterozygous allele. This is homozygous. So we can write down 2 raised power 2. 2 to the 4 different types of gametes. 4 different types of gametes are formed from this genotype. Types of gametes. Then we have another one, this one. So in this condition, how many gametes are formed here? We know we have number of gametes is equal to 2n, where n is the number of heterozygous alleles, 2n, where n is the number of heterozygous alleles. This is heterozygous allele, homozygous, homozygous, homozygous alleles. So only one heterozygous allele. So we have capital A, small a, this is heterozygous allele, heterozygous alleles, homozygous, this is capital B, homozygous alleles, this is small c, capital C, this is capital C, homozygous alleles, capital D, this is also homozygous. So this heterozygous allele only one. So we can write down here 2 raised power 1, 2 1 is a 2, 2. So 2 different types of gametes are formed, different types of gametes. Same is the case we have here. This is number of gametes which are formed from this genotype. So we have 2 raised power n, where n is the number of heterozygous alleles. How many heterozygous? This heterozygous allele, heterozygous allele, heterozygous. This is homozygous alleles. Heterozygous alleles, heterozygous alleles, heterozygous. So 1, 2, and 3. 3 heterozygous alleles, and this is homozygous allele. So 2 raised power 1, 2, and 3. 3. So we have 2 to the 4 to the 8 different types of gametes. Types of gametes. This 2n rule, it is applicable to only heterozygous alleles. It is unapplicable to homozygous alleles. homozygotes. 2n rule in case of number of gametes, calculation of number of gametes is not applicable to homozygotes, whereas 2n rule is applicable to heterozygous allele. These were some of the numericals which were based on 2n rule. So we can calculate if we have a genotype, then you can also calculate the number of gametes which are formed from this genotype. Simply we have to apply 2n rule, that is number of gametes is equal to 2n, where n is the number of heterozygous alleles in the genotype. We have to just calculate the heterozygous alleles in the genotype, and then we can calculate the number of gametes which are formed from that particular genotype. Thanks.